Threezero decides to call in Veronica. Here's your look at the new Threezero Avengers Age of Ultron, the DLX collectible figure of Hulkbuster Iron Man. Threezero is excited to announce the second figure from the Marvel Studios Infinity Saga series, DLX Iron Man Mark 44 Hulkbuster Armor. The fully articulated 1/12 scale collectible figure stands at 11.7 inches tall and is constructed of Threezero's renowned DLX die-cast system with over 65 points of articulation. Before we take to looking at the brand new DLX Iron Man Mark 44 codename Hulkbuster Armor, let me first thank the folks over at Threezero, who made this review actually possible by sending over this early sample copy that we can have a look at in this video. If you guys are interested and were big fans of the original Mark 43, a previously released Iron Man suit, then the Iron Man Mark 44 is slated to release the first quarter of 2022, and listings have already popped up online. We're going to go ahead and take the ruler here. Put it right to the very top. This one's a big boy. You're looking at the Iron Man Hulkbuster armor at being almost 12 inches in height. It's just a little less than being 31 centimeters tall. Speaking of the Iron Man Mark 43, we can bring in the previously looked at DLX Iron Man Mark 43 for some size comparisons. Obviously, he's already dwarfed by the size of the Hulkbuster armor. But what's rather interesting is also something that they've done to have the two figures integrate with one another. Like in the movie, you can actually take the Iron Man Mark 43 armor and fit it inside the cockpit of the much rather larger Hulkbuster suit, something that we're going to be doing a little bit later into this review. Tackling first, though, the figure comes included with 3 pairs of interchangeable hands, which unfortunately for the Hulkbuster makes up all of his accessories. The 3 pairs of interchangeable hands have varying different gestures to them. Currently, right now, in the sockets of his forearms, you may notice a pair of closed fists, really good for laying into the Hulk's face. If you want something a little bit more relaxed, though, then the figure comes with a pair of relaxed hands, which we'll have a look at first. Well sculpted and equally well painted by Threezero, to the point where looking at these, you would almost think you'd be able to bend the fingers at the knuckles, but they are staction. The paint that they've used is quite nice, making use of this crimson red, sprinkled in there with a little bit of silver and a little bit of gold, finishing off the rest of the hands. As you can see as well, on the inside of the palms, a repulsor blast, which is something that's also going to carry over when we look at the next set of hands. If you want your figure to be posed looking as if he's firing his repulsor hands, then these are better hands to go with. They're not that much different. In fact, let me go ahead and grab the original relaxed hand. You can see that the fingers are a little bit more extended on these hands, as well as the angle where that's going to socket into the forearm. It's also slightly angled up. See how this one's straight, this one's slightly more bent. If you did want to change the hands, by the way, you can go ahead and take the figure. He's a very heavy guy to start manipulating and moving around. But what we're going to do is we're just going to remove this hand from the ball joint. Just wiggle it back and forth. It's pretty easy, actually. You would think a figure of this size would have more problems trying to get to have things removed, like his hands, for example. But go ahead and take the proper hands. Go ahead and just plug those back into place. Just wiggle it back under the ball joint. I don't know if you guys can actually see that or not. Just wiggle it back and forth. There we go. And once that's in place, you actually can have the Hulkbuster with his repulsor hands. I think until we eventually get ourselves a Hulk of this size. I'm actually curious whether Threezero is going to be delving outside of mechanical creatures, whether we are going to be getting a Hulk in a DLX line, or if they're going to kind of stick to the mechanical stuff. I would really love to see what they could do, for example, with an Ultron. But those are unfortunately all of the accessories that come included with the Hulkbuster Iron Man. The figure features light-up options in his eyes, in his arc reactor, and then the back of his torso as well. We're going to start first with his head, as this is the one I have the hardest time to really gain access to. First of all, you really don't have to remove the head to turn on the lights. All you see is right now there's a little ledge of lighter plastic. If you click that, it actually turns on the light source, so you don't have to remove the head every single time. If you did the first time want to have to change and put in brand new batteries, for example, I really don't, again, like doing this. I'm going to remove it from the ball joint. Again, I'm just going to twist it back and forth. And you can already see one thing I have a problem with is the way that they attach the head to the neck. Instead of having a straight piece, it's a curled piece. And if you're not careful, because it's really hard to gain access to this, you're going to be pulling against this, and this could potentially start developing stress marks, or even worse, could potentially break. But once it's removed, there's 2 screws right there. Oh, I need to actually tighten one of them. Unscrew both of those, and then you can remove this entire plate and install the batteries. Batteries are not included with this figure when you first get them, and they need AG1 batteries. You actually need 2 for the head, you need 2 for the torso, and then on the back of the body you actually need 3. So if you're looking to have an even number of batteries after it's all said and done, you're unfortunately not going to have that. But again, to activate the light, you're just going to press this little lip of plastic. When you press that, let me just go ahead and flip this around so it's a little easier for you guys to see. When you flip it, you can see that the lights, let me just put the figure down here for 1 second. I'm going to grab the head, it's so much easier just doing it this way. A little lip of plastic right there. When you do press that, it turns on. It basically pushes against the battery source on the inside, and that allows the head lights to turn on and off. On, off, on, off, on. So really, again, it's nice that you don't have to do this where you remove the head every single time to gain access to the batteries. It's really just that initial time. Putting it on is actually a lot easier than removing it. I find it helps to lift the cockpit up, the canopy that's going to fit over top of the cockpit. And then just get your hand in there. See how you can kind of get your thumb in there? And that sort of helps to stabilize things when you pop it back onto the ball joint. Again, when it comes to accessing the batteries, it's pretty easy. You just hit that little switch, turns it off, hit that switch again to turns on. It's only really that first time, that initial time of putting in the batteries that I really think I have problems. Really not so much the fact that you have to install the batteries, but more so the fact of how you have to remove the head in the first place to gain access to the battery compartment. The arc reactor battery compartment is a little more involved to get access to, although I don't feel like while I'm doing it, I'm going to be breaking it like I could potentially break with the head. To get access to this area, first thing you want to do is detach these. This attaches the shoulders to the torso plates. You're going to just lift these up, and they actually slot in. Let me go pick this up so you guys can see what's going on here. There's actually clips that fit into those little grooves and snaps everything together. Just attach it like that. And then you want to take these and you want to separate them. It's a lot easier certainly to do once you have those shoulders detached. And then you'll also want to take these little clips and bring them out as well. Just enough again that you can get access to this battery compartment. And then from there, this little ledge right here, follow it around with your finger and just remove it. It just detaches like that. Just make sure that these are completely out of the way. And then this whole section slides out. See that? There's a little clip on both sides. Here's the battery compartment right here. Again, 2 batteries, 2 screws. Unscrew those to gain access to batteries inside. 2 batteries here, 2 batteries for the head, and strangely enough, 3 batteries on the back of his torso. But once those are screwed in place, all you do is press this button to turn on the arc reactor. Hopefully I didn't blind you in the process. You don't really have to remove this every single time if you want to turn on and off the light. In fact, you can do the exact same thing when the plate's back in place. To put it back in place, slide it up. You sort of have to get it under the undercarriage of his torso. And once everything's then lined up, just sort of snap it back into place. Fold these down, bring up the shoulders, and while you're bringing up the shoulders, just make sure these clips are out of the way. And then you can also snap these back down. Now, I'm sure you probably could ask yourself, couldn't you just remove this plate without having to remove this? Technically, you can. You can still gain access to this. But I find while you're doing it, as you can see right now as I'm doing it, it really pushes against these. So I find it helpful to actually detach these and just move them out of the way in the first place. That way you're not running the risk of clipping these in the process. Again, you just want to snap these down, bring the plates back up, and see how these little ledges, see the little clips right there, will line up. And providing you've actually got these high enough, these will just snap back into place. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. And then from there, just go ahead and press the button to turn on the arc reactor. Like I said, it's a little bit more involved than a head, but while doing this the whole time, I wasn't worried as much that I was going to be breaking anything in the process. Go ahead and spin the figure around now to get access to his back battery compartment, which is this gold plate that has to be removed. The first time I did this, I was really worried because the clips on either side were holding on for dear life that I really did feel like I was going to snap it in the process. What I would recommend is just sort of take your time, be very patient. This is the easiest way to access it, is just kind of get your finger to the top. But if you feel like these pegs aren't freeing themselves, sort of just wiggle them away from sort of clipping into the side. And then from there, just grab to the top here and remove the whole thing, just like that. See the little clips right here, the little slots that the clips are going to fit in, top, bottom. What you're going to do then is unscrew this battery compartment, and then you'll have to put in 3 AG1 batteries. AG1 batteries are not a common battery to find, although you could probably get a whole bunch of them over on Amazon. I think I bought probably like 25 batteries over on Amazon for a little under $20. Unscrew, though, the battery plate, put your 3 AG1 batteries in, and then your light switch is actually right there. Of all the lights that are actually on the Hulkbuster, I find these ones to be the dimmest. You can see right here, it lights the inside lights as well as the side panel lights on the side of his torso as well. Again, the only problem with this one is every single time you want to turn on the batteries, you have to remove this plate. It's not so much difficult it's not so difficult after several times of doing this. But the first time you do it, if there is a little bit of resistance, don't resist the urge to really pry against it. For risk, again, that these side ones could snap right off. Just a little bit of patience, a little bit of time. And like I said, you can just pop that right off to gain access to the batteries. And there's your on and off switch right there. Now, I did say earlier in this review that you could actually take the Mark 43 and put him inside the cockpit of the Iron Man Mark 44. We're going to go ahead and do that right now. First things first, you want to take these side shoulders and just bring them away from his arms, just like that. Slide them out, because you really do want to free up the space right here. Unclip these like we had done earlier. Just attach them on both the sides. And then you're going to take these shoulders. It actually even helps, too, if you want to bring up the head early. Take these shoulder pieces and just want to shimmy them out. I don't know if I would consider that a technical term, but you're going to take the shoulder pads here, and you just want to sort of lift them as you're pulling them out, like this. You basically want to make this gesture with them. Just detach them and sort of just slide them out. Without them, really, you can't fit in the Iron Man Mark 43 just because it's going to block this section. So you really do have to bring these out. Continuing with that, you can then go ahead and take these, as we already done earlier. You really don't have to even remove these or move these out. If you wanted to, you can, but I don't think it's necessarily going to make things any bit easier. And one thing that's rather interesting, though, about this is not only can you put in the Iron Man Mark 43, but you can also as well take the display stand that came included with the Iron Man Mark 43. I just want to show you what the inside cockpit looks like. Right here, see there's a peg. Well, the neck, the adjustable neck that came included with the display stand, what you can then do is take this peg that's on the bottom of it, and instead of this going into the display base, it's going to fit right into that hexagonal hole. And just plug it into place like that. You probably already can see where this is going to be going. We're just going to move this back just a little bit. And then on the back of the Iron Man Mark 43, like we did in the review, there's a plate here that covers over this little hole right here. You don't have to, I'm just going to kind of put it in a quick rushed pose, but the idea is that you can then take the Iron Man suit, just kind of bend his arms a little bit, and just on the back here, you can then take that post and plug it onto the back, fitting it, of course, into that socketed area. I'll show you guys a closer look at what that looks like in a second. But you're going to clip that right into Iron Man's body, just in that lower section. In fact, you know what? I'll just do it first up close so you can see. See, it has this little pronged fork. That's going to fit into the bottom of the Iron Man suit, like that. And then this little post right here is going to post into that section we just finished having a look at. And that just plugs into place. I would certainly suggest as well when you're putting this into it to make sure that it's a firm attachment before you start moving forward with the idea of displaying him. And this just sort of plugs in place. Let me just pick this up so I can show you what's going on here. Plug it right into that hexagonal port. And then from there you can actually have Iron Man Mark 43 displayed. Let me move the camera back a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. This is what it looks like once you've taken that adjustable neck that came included with the Iron Man Mark 43 and you've posted it inside of the cockpit of the Iron Man Mark 44. You can actually make it look as if the Iron Man Mark 43 is escaping the Hulkbuster suit. It does look rather interesting. What I would say, though, is I'm going to carefully spin this sideways. It really works the best when you have it straight up. And if you bend the neck forward, two things that are going to happen. You're putting stress against the clip that's attaching to the back torso of the Iron Man Mark 43, and he may actually fall out of that clip. And you may not also get a secure enough attachment to the bottom of the neck that if you lean it forward, the weight of the Iron Man Mark 43 may actually just pop that post right out of the cockpit. So I would probably say if you are looking to display this, probably have it displayed where the Iron Man Mark 43 is actually jettisoning up rather than out of the suit. Another way that you can display the Iron Man Mark 43 is by putting him inside the cockpit. Now, you can't do it right now with the figure fully intact. It does involve you having to rip off some of the parts. Ripping off is probably not the best way to describe it, but really that is what you're going to be doing. First of all, you need to say goodbye to the lower forearm because these have to come out. You're just going to grab the bicep, hold on to the bicep, and just wiggle this back and forth until finally you remove the clip that's attaching the elbow to the inside cavity of the bicep. You can do the exact same thing on the other side as well, just pulling that off. And then what you have to do is you have to say goodbye to the lower half of Iron Man. This is a lot easier because really it detaches via the clip that was there anyways when you have to detach it to install the batteries for the arc reactor. So it's a lot easier to take off. Then from there, you can go ahead and take the Iron Man, which seems so strange to see only just the top bust of him. And you really also want to make sure too, because these original Iron Man figures had the options of having their arms extending out. Now you really do want to tuck these in, making sure as well the shoulders are in. You want to get as small of a space as you possibly can get, because then what you're going to do is you're going to take the bottom of Iron Man, and just to show you again the cockpit here, remember this shape right here that we plugged in the adjustable neck? Well, that actually will fit perfectly around the shape of the battery compartment. So what you're going to do is you're going to take Iron Man and simply slide him down inside the cockpit. You can already see why you will want to have to fold the shoulders in or kind of tuck them in, because you really want to have as much space as possible. Just again, make sure everything's tucked in nicely and then slide him down into the cockpit. The first couple of times that I did this, I realized that I didn't have the shoulders far enough in. Again, you just want to make sure that they're completely tucked in and then just again, fold it. Once that's in place, that's a lot easier. There you go. Just slide him right down into the cockpit. Now you can either have it displayed like this, where the cockpit canopy is opened up. He's folded open like this, where you can actually see Tony sitting inside of the Hulkbuster, or you can also fold it up, because I know that's one thing you guys probably would be curious to know. Can you fold up, close up his suit, and still have the Mark 43 inside? You can. So the first thing we're going to do is, first of all, you want to just make sure that these little clips are up. You can easily just bring the head down. It's not a step that you have to wait for at the end. As you can see, there's an opening right here that's going to fit nicely over top of his head, and just fold that up like that. You can still turn on the lights too if you wanted to. Just turn on the light switch, on, and again off. Then from there, you're going to bring these panels up that make up the front of his torso piece. And then you're going to also bring in his shoulders. Now the shoulders are, of all the things you kind of have to fold up, the shoulders are kind of the more stubborn things. You kind of have to according them in and then do the exact same thing on the other side. Making sure, of course, the clips are up and making sure these plates are far enough up as well. Then take the little snap pieces and clip them into place and do the exact same thing on the other side. The key crucial moment is the fact that you really have to make sure that these shoulders are folded far enough in. It doesn't have to be the case where you do the head last, but you might find even if it's easier, you can also do the head last, because again, it just opens and closes on its own. And if it's a little bit easier, really, just move in the shoulders first. Get everything snapped into place, both sides. Just get the other side in, there we go. And then, yeah, you can easily just close up the head afterwards. The only last step that you have to do then is take the shoulders. The thing about the shoulders is I'm going to deliberately remove one of them. Inside the shoulders, you can see there's a circular clip on both the sides and actually fits right into these little socketed areas. The reasoning why I already took that off is while you are moving the shoulders around, because you have to move them back and forth, sometimes periodically these may pop off, but they're fairly easy to put back in place. In fact, you know what, I'll just leave this one off for the time being. I'm going to fold this arm in, the shoulder in underneath it, and then I'm going to put it back in place. There's the one. Let's try to do the exact same thing, but this time keep the shoulder in place. You can also swing these out too to make things a little easier. Kind of get your finger underneath. See, I'm doing right there with my finger. And then that just also helps to push it in place, while the shoulder, the top of the shoulder, doesn't pop off. This one pops off a little more than the other one here. We'll just, again, easily pop that back into place. And then once everything's good to go, you've actually got yourself, as strange as it may seem to believe, you've actually got yourself the Iron Man Mark 43 sitting inside the cockpit. The only real reason that you would know that there's an Iron Man sitting inside is just by the fact that he has all now these extra parts of Iron Man Mark 43 laying around. Other than that, though, you really would have no idea that there's a smaller Iron Man sitting inside of the Hulkbuster. Really nice work on Threezero's part. So let's get in there and get a closer look at Hulkbuster Iron Man. I guess to get the full effect going, we'll turn the lights back on. Once again, we'll just lift the head up hit that little tab piece that connects to the battery source, and that illuminates the eyes. The arc reactor, again, very easy. Just go ahead and press the button. And the hardest of the three, we'll go ahead and remove the back plate here, and we'll turn on the lights on the back. I still feel like the lights aren't as bright on the back, but it may have also something to do with the way that they've tinted or frosted the plastic. It sort of gives it a more darker coloring, especially when the lights are trying to seep through it. The only place that actually doesn't illuminate on the Hulkbuster, involves me having to spin this around, is the lower sections here on his legs. I don't mind the fact that they did forfeit and sacrifice battery light-ups down below, if still we had the option here on the arc reactor to light up the eyes, and already mentioned on the back of his torso, the little light sources there as well. One other feature that's also in the Hulkbuster involves these gauntlets on the sides of his arms. He has a little electric mace, well, not so little in fact. You just want to lift this up, and then take this whole section and fold it up on these little joints on either side. You can then take these posts and extend them out, and there's also a little guard that also folds up this way as well. And he has a little electric mace. Just go ahead and fold things back up, tuck those back in. And then when you are putting this back down, when you're folding it down, you notice that it's going to leave a little gap here. You sort of have to accordion it back in, and then sort of tuck it back into the arm, just like that. And then we'll go ahead and just close up the front there. While we're certainly also in the area of the arms, one thing that was really neat about the arms, and actually the legs have it as well, is these little spring plates. See how it springs back and forth? Why they've done that is so that when you are bending the elbow, which we'll talk more about when you look at the articulation on the figure, see how this plate shifts? I don't know if you can actually see that or not. This whole section here shifts forward to get in the way, or to get out of the way when you're bending the figure's elbows. And when I straighten out the arms, see how that snaps back into place? They've actually done the exact same thing here on the legs too, and you'll see it as well when I'm moving the legs back and forth. You sort of really get that vibe. There's a mechanical robot here moving all individual parts, or a suit that Iron Man, of course, is wearing. The fact that that does actually shift back and forth like that is really interesting, the way that they've been able to incorporate that. Still, if that means we get something like this happening at the sake of sacrificing those lights down below in its lower legs, I'm more than fine for the idea that they didn't actually put in illumination down below. Again, we'll just spin this guy around while he's all lit up so you can see all the features on this guy. Just even like lifting his arm up, the level of detailing that they actually even put to the inside cavity of where his arm sits inside. Just a lot of great work here happening from Threezero. Now let's talk a little bit about the articulation on this guy, because there's a fair bit to cover off. We'll start things first with obviously his head sculpt, which sits on a ball joint. I know I already talked about my problem with the ball joint. We'll just kind of lift it up. I still wish that this wasn't a curved piece, because I do think the first time you want to change the batteries, there is a potential there for that potentially breaking. But anyways, he does have a ball joint, so it does shift back and forth this way. You can also have a head looking up and looking down. And because also the way it attaches to the ball joint, you actually get a little bit of lift as well when you want to lift the head a little higher than normal. So it can look down, and it can also look up this way. Now when it comes to his arms are things that you sort of want to do in steps. We already looked at the fact that the shoulder pieces can shift out like this, and you can kind of see how that works on the tops of his shoulders. You want to really bring these out first, then to allow the figure's arms to extend out at a full 90-degree angle bend. You take then the arms, and also as well, there's a little socketed joint on the inside that allows for a little bit extra mileage and range, bringing out those arms. But yeah, the arms go forward and back, and technically, yeah, you could rotate them all the way around if you wanted to. I'll go ahead and do that right now. We already talked about the plate, but I want to show you how that works again. He does have a bend in the elbow, but he has a single bend higher up, and then he's got a secondary bend down at the bottom where his forearm is. Now, when you are, again, bending the arm, see how that plate shifts forward? You may have missed it. Let me just do that again. Straightening it out. See how that plate shifts back? Really interesting the way, they've done that. The hands are on ball joints, so they simply just rotate back and forth. The upper torso is on its own independent ball joint, so you can move that all the way around. It does have a leg splits. Now, what I would suggest that you do if you are getting this figure for yourself is just be careful of these skirtings. The skirts separate in the sense that they start like this. You bring them in, and then you want to bring them out first before you decide you want to start moving the legs. You can take the legs and bring them out. Not a full solid splits, but more than enough if you want to get a wide stance. If Hulkbuster is, say, by battling the Hulk, for example. You can take the legs and move them forward. But again, when you are moving them forward, just be really, really careful that you're not hitting and clipping these skirts because, yeah, they're going to break right off. The figure has a double hinge on the knee. It's not even so much even a double hinge. As you can see, it's sort of like two hinges working together for one fluid motion. And when it is shifting back and forth, see how the plate on the top of the thigh also shifts as well? Really like that. I like that a lot. Then for the feet move back and forth this way. There is also an ankle pivot too. So really you can get a lot of interesting stands going on here with the Hulkbuster suit. Let me just straighten things off here. Just bring his torso around. There we go. Yeah, I'm really liking the look here of Hulkbuster. He's good, he's heavy, he's got a lot of good detailing going for him, and a lot of real intricate parts going as well. A lot of things that move behind the scenes. Not only can you open up his torso piece, for example, to gain access to a cockpit inside that you can have the Mark 43 sitting inside, but the fact he does have little gauntlets that can open up, exposing those electric maces, the fact he has shifting, moving parts depending on how you pose the figure, it really seems like Threezero put a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of care to produce the Mark 44. The end result is a really nice looking piece to get on display. One of the many cool features about the new Threezero Hulkbuster suit is the fact it can integrate with the previously released Iron Man Mark 43. You can integrate it in two different ways that we looked at in this review. The first one being, of course, the adjustable neck that came included with the Iron Man Mark 43. You can post that inside of the cockpit and make it look as if the Iron Man is escaping the suit, flying out the top. The other option involves a little more disassembly, because of course you have to rip apart the Iron Man Mark 43 from the elbows down and from the waist down to get the torso piece sitting inside the cockpit. What I like about that, though, is it's still integrated into the suit that if you did want to fold up shop, you don't have to remove at all the Iron Man Mark 43 in order to do it. The Iron Man Mark 43 can sit still easily inside while you're folding up and collapsing everything around it, so that you're always having that extra suit sitting inside. Again, I already mentioned the downside to that is you're going to have, as a result of an extra Iron Man Mark 43 parts sitting around, but for the time being, those parts are going to probably just go back in the box. And I'm probably either going to have it displayed like this with the cockpit opened up, exposing the Iron Man sitting inside of it, or again, if I wanted to decide later on folding up things, I can easily just keep the extra figure sitting inside. And that's one of the neat features about this figure. I really feel like Threezero had put a lot of effort, time, and care into producing this. Not only factor in the idea that you can incorporate the previously released Mark 43, but not to mention as well the fact that this one has the illumination in the arc reactor, the eyes, and the back of its torso, but also the fact it has moving parts. So every single time that you're moving joints, the arms, the legs around, sort of panels start going along with it, that nothing feels like it's getting in the way. Batteries are pretty straightforward and easy to install. My only real concern, again, mentioned already in this review, is the removal of the head. At least you don't have to remove the head every single time you turn on the eyes, but you do have to remove it the first time you install the batteries, and just the way they've got that curved bit of plastic with the ball joint really literally on the end of it, I just worry again, trying to pop the head off. Putting it back on is not so difficult because you can kind of get your thumb inside that open cavity to kind of assist putting a little bit of pressure against it, but initially removing the head, I was really worried about it. Removing the rest of the armor and gaining access to the front and the back of the torso, not as bad, even though the back plate gave me a little bit of resistance, but I love the fact that that this figure has illumination on top of all the other things it has going for it as well. Now, this one is slated to release the first quarter of 2022. It's already as a pre-order on many of the online sites, if you guys are interested to pick this one up for yourself, and the going price point for it right now is $249.99, or about $250. For the fact that you're getting this much Iron Man going on, and for the fact it can integrate with the previously released Mark 43, I think $250 is a fantastic price. Something that Threezero is doing quite well, offering their figures at an affordable price, keeping in mind other companies that are doing Hulkbusters and what they're charging for it. Think of what we got all here with the Iron Man Mark 44, the Hulkbuster suit, for $250. Can't beat that. A big thank you again to the folks over at Threezero that did in fact provide the sample of the brand new Iron Man Mark 44 Hulkbuster that we could have a look at in this review. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. And for your video question for today, what's your favorite Iron Man suit? Let me know down below in the comment section. It doesn't have to be one that's actually appeared in the films. What's your favorite all-time Iron Man suit? Let me know down below in the comment section. And hey, now if you are new to this channel, you're enjoying the content that you're seeing, A couple of things you can do for yourself. First of which, you can hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on the bell notification. Yes, so you get those friendly reminders of whenever new videos are going to be popping up. And once again, a reminder to you, popping up at the end of this video, you may see yourself finding a playlist popping up featuring all the other Threezero stuff that I've reviewed in the previous years. Feel free to give that a gander if you have a little bit of time. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.